There is an invisible map being redrawn within the United States, a map that doesn't follow official borders, but deep cracks left by decades of unfulfilled promises. In places once celebrated as symbols of American economic power, silent marks of a decline that many have tried to ignore are now emerging. With each emptied neighborhood, each avenue dominated by closed signs, each shopping mall transformed into a corridor of echoes, not only material losses are revealed, but emotional scars that affect entire families. What was once a symbol of ascension now resembles an urban body struggling to maintain what remains of life. The public narrative insists on reinforcing the image of a resilient, vibrant, unwavering country. But away from the official cameras, what we see are communities trying to survive the impact of an economy that no longer protects as it once did. Small businesses disappear, schools lose students, hospitals reduce services, and the feeling that something bigger is approaching grows in each account, from those who still resist in these silent territories. It's as if two Americas coexist, the one of optimistic speeches, and the one that tries to disguise the ruins with the lights that still remain. And while many wonder how millionaire cities came so close to becoming ghost towns, another, even more unsettling question is beginning to emerge. What exactly is behind this social blackout that is unfolding without witnesses? This is where the documentary delves deeper, revealing data, stories, and signs that have been ignored for years. What you are about to see completely changes how you view the future of the United States. Before we move on to the next revelation, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This ensures you follow every part of this investigation and helps us keep this content online. Let's continue. Over the past 2 decades, subtle signs have begun to emerge in the most affluent neighborhoods of these 5 cities. Initially, these signs seemed like isolated irregularities, but as they repeated themselves in different areas, they revealed a disturbing pattern of accelerated deterioration. The vitality that once defined these urban centers has been replaced by a series of empty spaces, abandoned shop windows, nearly deserted parking lots, and streets where the flow of people has diminished to the point of transforming once intensive areas into places dominated by silence, creating a scenario that directly contradicts the image of power and prosperity that these places projected. The sudden disappearance of small businesses, the closure of traditional schools, and the reduction of essential public services reinforced the perception that something deeper was unfolding there. Far beyond the superficial explanations often presented by official discourse, in areas that, until recently, boasted mansions valued at millions of dollars, auction signs were piling up, while longtime residents reported increasing difficulties in affording basic expenses, a reversal that contradicted decades of economic stability. The presence of emergency supply lines in regions considered privileged exposed the fragility of the system, revealing that the crisis had surpassed geographical and socio-economic boundaries previously considered impenetrable. The prevailing feeling among the few who remained was that the collapse had not arrived suddenly, but had settled in silently, consuming the very foundation of these cities from the inside out. The deterioration, though visible, still seemed shrouded in a veil of contradictory narratives, in which authorities insisted on attributing everything to natural economic cycles, ignoring that the speed of the fall and the depth of the impact suggested another explanation. And while many sought plausible reasons for such a transformation, a question arose that no one could avoid, even among those who preferred to believe the official version. Your opinion, what was the first sign that something was wrong in these cities, and why did no one want to see it? As the signs of deterioration became more evident, the need arose to understand what had truly caused the abrupt transformation of these cities, which for decades had been presented as benchmarks of economic stability and administrative efficiency. Although superficial explanations sought to attribute the decline to external factors, such as changes in consumption habits, population, migration, or simple market instability, a more careful analysis revealed that such justifications were insufficient to explain the speed with which entire structures crumbled before attentive and often perplexed eyes. Typical economic fluctuations would never produce, so simultaneously, Such a profound fall in cities that possessed financial reserves, robust urban plans, and development policies previously considered exemplary. Independent investigations began to point to a sequence of strategic decisions that, taken over years, silently rearranged the economic flows that sustained these regions. Tax incentives targeted at large conglomerates, the gradual closure of essential public services, and the relocation of investments to external areas contributed to emptying fundamental sectors, creating a vacuum that only became visible when its effects were already irreversible. The intentional reduction of taxes on large corporations and the progressive increase in costs for small property owners produced an imbalance that favored large groups while weakening the social, economic, and community structure that gave life to these places. Meanwhile, banks and investment funds began aggressively acquiring properties, creating idle inventory that artificially altered the real estate balance, causing displacement of residents and encouraging speculation at unprecedented levels. Although such practices were justified as market strategies, their side effects showed that the publicly displayed prosperity no longer reflected the internal economic reality. The authorities, in turn, maintained reassuring narratives, claiming normality, even in the face of increasing unemployment and the exodus of medium-sized businesses, essential elements for maintaining urban vitality. Given this set of factors, an inevitable question remained in the air, permeating public debates and silent conversations among the few who sought answers beyond the official versions. If all these decisions were public, why did their real impacts remain invisible for so long? With the revelation of the causes that fueled the deterioration of these millionaire cities, it became evident that the impact of decisions made years before was beginning to manifest itself forcefully in the daily lives of the residents who still remained in these regions. The process of depopulation, previously discreet and almost imperceptible, took on broader proportions when medium-sized companies, unable to compete with the conglomerates favored by fiscal policies, closed their doors, leaving behind a series of establishments that once drove the local economy. The absence of these businesses triggered a domino effect that affected not only commerce, but also the institutions that depended on the financial flow generated by these operations, contributing to the silent closure of schools, community centers, and essential public services. As the economic base weakened, unemployment surged among groups that had historically enjoyed financial stability, creating an unusual scenario in which skilled professionals struggled to rebuild their lives in environments that had previously offered them security and consistent opportunities. The decline in commercial activity transformed entire sectors into sparsely frequented transit zones, where once valued buildings rapidly lost their functionality, accumulating signs of abandonment that starkly contrasted with the image of prosperity these cities still sought to publicly maintain. The emotional impact on the population became equally evident, as many residents began to live with the feeling of witnessing the reversal of decades of community building and urban development. Meanwhile, social problems traditionally associated with less privileged areas began to emerge in neighborhoods known for their high standard of living, revealing that the collapse did not discriminate based on economic or demographic profiles. The rise in crime rates, driven by increasing unemployment and the absence of effective community presence, intensified the exodus of families who still had the resources to migrate, accelerating the process of urban depopulation. The wide, tree-lined streets, which once symbolized stability and quality of life, began to be avoided after nightfall, with reports of insecurity that surprised even local authorities. Given this succession of events, it became impossible to ignore that the consequences were not limited to the immediate present, but pointed to even deeper transformations that would affect not only these 5 cities, but possibly the entire country. If the current impact already reveals such a profound disruption, what remains hidden about the future of these regions that once symbolized the pinnacle of American prosperity? Share your opinion in the comments below. While the structural consequences spread through the streets and buildings of these cities, a less visible, yet equally profound impact began to take shape in the daily lives of their inhabitants, revealing a type of erosion that could not be measured solely by economic indicators or government statistics. The silent transformation occurred in the emotional climate surrounding these communities, a climate marked by the gradual loss of social bonds, a diminished sense of belonging, and a persistent feeling that collective life had fragmented, leaving behind a kind of modern void difficult to define but impossible to ignore. In environments where a dynamic and socially connected rhythm once prevailed, a shared perception of isolation spread, as if each individual inhabited a space that no longer met the most basic human needs, despite its seemingly complete infrastructure. The constant presence of technology, digital services, and accessible entertainment, elements that should have facilitated communication and strengthened relationships, paradoxically produced the opposite effect, widening the emotional distance between residents who, even living close to one another, experienced a profound inner disconnection. This distancing intensified as public spaces, once bustling with spontaneous encounters and daily interactions, became silent and sparsely frequented areas, reinforcing the idea that material progress was incapable of filling the growing feeling of absence that was settling into urban life. The gradual replacement of human interaction with hyper-individualized routines contributed to consolidating an atmosphere of loneliness that spanned different age groups, creating a scenario in which the lack of connection was compounded by socio-economic decline, deepening the crisis in an emotionally draining way. This perception of emptiness was not limited to individual experiences, but also manifested itself in the community as a whole, which began to observe the loss of elements that defined identity, history, and continuity. In places that symbolized abundance and opportunity, the uncomfortable realization emerged that technological advances and increasing productivity had not prevented the erosion of human relationships, nor had they offered meaning in the face of the sudden changes that transformed the surrounding environment. If emotional emptiness has spread even to the wealthiest and most structured places, what revelations emerge when we examine the hidden numbers that underpin this silent crisis? When the feeling of modern emptiness began to become a shared experience among residents of different neighborhoods, independent researchers began to examine not only subjective perceptions, but also concrete indicators that could explain the extent of the crisis spreading through these cities. The collection of this data revealed a set of information that, although available in public reports, remained little known, forming a disturbing picture of the true extent of the decline in regions previously considered benchmarks of economic stability. Instead of simple seasonal fluctuations, the numbers pointed to a profound structural change, suggesting that part of the collapse was being carefully downplayed by official discourses that avoided acknowledging the gravity of what was underway. Among the most striking data were the debt indices, which reached unprecedented levels even among high-income families, demonstrating that the cost of living far exceeded the financial capacity of a large part of the local population. Reports showed that more than 60% of residents in these areas accumulated debts exceeding their annual income, a result of policies that pressured consumption while reducing opportunities for economic advancement. Furthermore, the rate of vacant properties, which historically remained low in these centers, registered an increase of over 300% in less than a decade, indicating that the population exodus was advancing at an accelerated pace with no stabilization in sight. Another alarming statistic concerned the reliance on food assistance programs, which surpassed figures recorded during critical periods in American history, including significant episodes of the Great Depression. Food banks and charitable organizations reported a steady increase in demand, including from residents who previously contributed financially to such initiatives, demonstrating that the crisis had overflowed from the economically vulnerable and reached sectors considered protected. This discrepancy between the image of opulence and the data on emergency needs revealed a contradiction that dismantled the official narrative of recovery and showed a reality far more severe than that presented to the public. With such alarming numbers and an emotional crisis reflected on every corner, it became inevitable to question what the next stage of this silent collapse would be. If the data already reveals such a profound rupture, what might the future of these cities reveal when the final warning finally becomes impossible to ignore? As the hidden numbers revealed the depth of the crisis, it became increasingly evident that the decline observed in these cities was not an isolated episode, but rather a harbinger of even broader transformations that could irreversibly reshape the socio-economic landscape of the United States. Analysts who had been tracking urban trends for years began to highlight that the simultaneous decline of such wealthy and influential regions served as an indicator of structural instability, suggesting that the pillars supporting the country were undergoing an accelerated process of exhaustion. The weakening of essential sectors, coupled with continuous population displacement and the gradual reduction of public investment, created an environment in which recovery became increasingly unlikely, increasing the risk that other cities would follow the same path. This warning intensified when compared to typical economic behaviors of pre-collapse periods documented in different parts of the world, in which the erosion of wealthier regions preceded nationwide crises. Increased inequality, extreme income concentration, continuous inflationary pressure, and reduced social mobility indicated that the observed transformations were no longer exceptions but symptoms of a profound change in American social structure. In this context, experts warned that if the current pace were maintained, the country could face a series of disruptions in the coming years that would directly affect security, growth, and institutional stability in a way never before seen in its recent history. Given this scenario, the unsettling realization emerged that the collapse was no longer limited to statistical indicators, but was encroaching on the country's own capacity to adapt to the changes it had helped to accelerate. If the final warning is already echoing throughout the country, what further does the conclusive message from these abandoned cities have to reveal about the fate of an America that tries to hide behind its own silence? Observing the series of transformations these cities have undergone, it becomes inevitable to recognize that the collapse is not only revealed in the materiality of abandoned buildings, closed establishments, or silent streets, but above all in the profound rupture between the image the country projects to the world and the reality that slowly imposes itself on those who witness this change firsthand. The growing distance between the promise of prosperity and the concrete living conditions of the residents exposes a structural fissure that goes far beyond economic figures, reaching social, emotional, and cultural dimensions that reconfigure the collective understanding of security, belonging, and the future. In this scenario, the ruin of these cities represents not only the fall of once admired urban centers, but the reflection of a country struggling to maintain a narrative of strength while facing fragilities that are becoming increasingly difficult to conceal. The silence that settles between the empty buildings seems to symbolize more than just human absence, serving as a reminder that no society remains immune to the wear and tear caused by misguided decisions, accumulated inequalities, and priorities distorted over time. Thus, at the end of this journey, what remains is the perception that the true crisis lies not only in the streets that have lost their activity, but in the collective feeling that the dream that sustained generations is threatened by forces that advance slowly but decisively, rewriting the identity of each affected city. Given this, it becomes essential to reflect on what can still be preserved and on the importance of recognizing the signs before they disappear completely. If this analysis has sparked in you the need to see reality without filters, subscribe to the channel and follow our upcoming investigations. Your participation strengthens this community that seeks to understand what is really happening in America that few have the courage to show.